The desert has a sound. It's not silence, it's breathing. A low hum that seeps through sand and bone, reminding you you're still alive for now. I'd been stationed outside Aleppo for 9 weeks. The air smelled of diesel and burnt metal, the kind of scent that clings to your hair even after 3 showers. My team called me Ironheart. I let them. It was easier than explaining what really beat underneath the body armor. That morning, the sun hadn't risen yet. I sat on an ammo crate, typing coded intel reports on a flickering tablet when my encrypted satellite phone started to buzz. Only 3 people had that frequency: my commanding officer, my handler, and the hospital back home. I remember the way my gloved fingers froze above the keypad. The wind carried a whisper of dust into my mouth, dry and bitter. I almost didn't answer. But something, that old mother's instinct, made me press connect. Natalie Pierce? The voice was calm, clinical. Yes, who's this? This is St. Mary's Hospital in Virginia. It's about your daughter. She's in critical condition. The world collapsed in one sentence. I don't remember standing. I don't remember the rifle slipping from my hands. I only remember the thundering pulse in my ears and the way the sky suddenly tilted. A mission briefing echoed in the distance, but I was already gone. Mentally, emotionally, sprinting through memory and guilt. Hold on, baby, I whispered. Mommy's coming. Before SYRIA. Before call signs and code names and bulletproof vests, there was just me, Natalie Pierce, 22, standing in my parents' kitchen in rural Virginia, arguing with a man who once promised forever. Michael leaned against the counter, arms crossed, jaw tight. You can't be serious, Nat. The army? You have a baby. His words hit like shrapnel. I held our 1-year-old daughter, Lila, on my hip. Her small fingers tugged at my dog tag, the one I'd gotten just yesterday at basic training orientation. I'm doing this for her, I said quietly. No, he shot back. You're doing this for you. You want to play hero, while someone else raises our kid. I can still feel the heat in my cheeks, the burn of shame mixed with fury. My mother stood by the sink, silent, eyes full of judgment she didn't need to voice. Dad just stared at the floor, like he'd already given up trying to understand me. I set Lila down in her playpen and took a step closer to Michael. You think I'm walking away? I'm fighting for something better than this paycheck-to-paycheck life. I'm fighting so she never has to depend on anyone. He laughed low, bitter. You'll choose the uniform over her someday. Just wait. Then he left. That door slam still echoes in my bones. Later that night, when the house was quiet and Lila was asleep, I sat on the floor beside her crib and cried until my throat ached. My mother came in, her voice soft. Natalie, women in this family survive by staying close to home, not by running off to war. I looked up at her, eyes swollen, heart cracked. Maybe I'm just made different. The next morning, before dawn, I packed my duffel. Lila stirred as I kissed her forehead. I'll always come back to you, okay? She didn't understand. But when I turned to leave, I noticed something on the nightstand, a little bracelet she'd been playing with, red yarn twisted and uneven. My mom must have helped her make it. A child's gift. A promise in color. I tied it around my wrist. So you'll never forget me, Mommy, she'd babbled once, trying to form words. I still hear that tiny voice every time I fasten my gear. That red thread became my silent vow. Every mission, every scar, every near miss, I wore it. Not for luck. For Lila. War changes you. But before that, training does. The first time I fired an M4 rifle, I cried. Not from fear, from release. The recoil shook something loose inside me, something I'd been holding since the night Michael walked out. Every drop of sweat, every bruise, every sleepless drill was a rebellion against weakness, against the version of me who had once begged someone to stay. I wasn't just learning to fight. I was learning to exist without apology. Within 2 years, I was stationed in Germany, attached to an intelligence unit. They said I had a gift: observation, patience, silence. I called it motherhood. When you've raised a toddler alone, you learn to read chaos before it erupts. My commander then was Major Evelyn Reyes, sharp, calm, always in control. She noticed my hesitation when I mentioned Lila. One evening, after a long day of field analysis, she said, "Pierce, strength doesn't mean shutting down. You can be both fierce and tender. Don't let them make you choose." That sentence followed me everywhere. Nights were the hardest. I'd sit by the barracks window with headphones, replaying Lila's voice messages, her giggles, her off-key birthday songs, her little, "I miss you, Mommy." Sometimes I'd whisper back, pretending she could hear me through the static of distance. Then came my first deployment. Afghanistan. Then Iraq. And eventually Syria. Each mission blurred into the next. Dust storms, foreign streets, codes hidden in casual conversations. I learned to compartmentalize everything: emotion, fear, hunger, love. You can't afford to feel when lives depend on your decisions. But still, every time I pulled my gloves on, that red thread pressed against my skin, a pulse reminding me of who I was beneath the uniform. My teammates didn't know about her. I kept it quiet. Being the mother in an active ops unit was like wearing a target on your back. So I played the role they needed, focused, unshakable, ruthless when I had to be. And slowly they began to trust me. I rose fast. Promotions, commendations, commend letters sealed in manila folders. My parents heard bits of it through news segments. Unnamed female intelligence officer honored for operation success overseas. They probably guessed, but we didn't talk about it. Back home, my social media was simple: a few beach photos, sunsets, vague captions. I didn't post medals. Didn't talk about the lives I'd saved or the missions that almost broke me. My success was quiet. Hidden. Because my daughter's safety depended on it. When I'd call home, I'd tell her, "Mommy's working in communications." It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. Lila didn't need a war hero. She needed stability. So I became two people, Agent Pierce in the field and Mom on the phone, pretending I wasn't wearing combat boots while she talked about school dances and math homework. There were times I almost quit after a close call, after watching a friend not make it back. But I'd touch the bracelet, close my eyes, and hear Lila's laughter. That sound was my armor. It reminded me why I had to keep going, why I had to survive. Because someday, when she was old enough to understand, I wanted her to know that everything I'd done, every scar, every sleepless night, was for her. Syria, 4 months into Operation Halcyon. We were tracking a high-value courier suspected of carrying intel on civilian bombing routes. Every move was timed, every sound measured. I was crouched behind a broken wall, comms crackling in my ear, when the call came. Not through official channels. Not through my handler. My private line. St. Mary's Hospital, Virginia, the voice said. "Your daughter's been in an accident. She's in critical condition." The world stopped breathing. For a second, I thought it was a glitch, some cruel joke or enemy intercept. But then the nurse's voice softened. "She was hit by a car crossing the street after school. She's alive, but..." I didn't let her finish. My mind had already detonated. "Pierce, do you copy?" My commander's voice barked in my earpiece. "We've got eyes on the target." I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Every motherly instinct I'd buried under training and mission code came crashing back, louder than gunfire. "I'm leaving," I said into the mic.
"What?"
"I'm done." "Pierce, that's desertion." But I was already running. Through smoke, through shouts, through the stunned faces of my team. I dropped my rifle on the dirt, tore the comms from my ear, and kept moving, toward the extraction point, toward home, toward Lila. Getting out wasn't easy. I had to barter every contact. I had to catch a ride on a supply convoy. Then a covert transport to Turkey. Then a commercial flight to Washington under an alias. 36 hours later, I landed in D.C., still in dusty fatigues, with nothing but a red thread bracelet and a prayer. The hospital lights burned cold when I walked in. The smell of antiseptic hit harder than any explosion I'd ever survived. "Are you family?" the nurse asked. "Yes," I said, voice trembling for the first time in years. "I'm her mother." Room 314. Machines hummed like whispers. "My little girl, My Lila lay pale against white sheets, a halo of tubes and beeping monitors around her. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, her lips chapped, her hand so small in mine. "Hey, baby," I whispered, my throat burning. "It's me." Her eyelids fluttered, but she didn't wake. My parents were there too, my mother gasping when she saw me. "Natalie." She took a step forward. "What are you doing here? What happened to your—" I cut her off. "How is she?" Dad looked older than I remembered, his eyes weary. "They said she might not make it through the night." My knees gave out. I clutched Lila's hand like I could anchor her to the world with sheer will. I must have sat there for hours. The rhythmic beep of the monitor became my only sense of time. My mother tried to speak again, but I couldn't. Every ounce of me was in that grip, that desperate connection between who I was and who I'd become. Then, just before dawn, Lila stirred. Her fingers twitched against mine. "Natalie," the nurse whispered. "She's waking up." Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused, searching, until they found me. "Mommy," she rasped. My heart broke open. "I'm here," I said, choking on tears I didn't know I still had. "I'm here, baby." "I'm so sorry." A tear rolled down her cheek, small and trembling. "You came." I nodded, pressing her hand to my lips. "Always." In that moment, every rank, every medal, every mission, none of it mattered. The toughest operative in the field was just a mother who had almost lost everything. Later, when the doctors explained she'd been volunteering at a children's food drive after school, something she'd organized herself, I understood. She'd inherited my courage. But hers came from kindness, not combat. And for the first time, I realized the mission that mattered most wasn't classified or covert or hidden behind encrypted codes. It was lying right there, fragile, breathing, beautiful. Lila's recovery was slow, but miraculous. Within 2 weeks, the doctors were calling her the little fighter. I stayed by her side every hour, refusing to leave even when they begged me to rest. When she finally managed to eat solid food again, she smiled. That same crooked grin from her baby pictures. "You still wear it," she whispered, noticing the faded red thread bracelet on my wrist. "Always," I said softly. "It's our promise." She squeezed my hand. "Then I knew you'd come." I looked at her, tears burning behind my eyes. "I almost didn't make it in time."
"But you did," she said.
"You always do." That night, as she slept, I stepped into the hallway where my parents were waiting. My mother looked small, hands twisting nervously. "Your commanding officer called here," she began carefully. "They said you went AWOL. Natalie, what have you done?" I took a deep breath. "I did what a mother is supposed to do." Dad sighed. "You walked away from a mission. That's not who you are." I turned toward him. "It is who I am. You just never understood the part of me that fights for something bigger than fear." The next morning, 2 military investigators arrived. They asked questions, took notes, said words like court-martial and dishonorable discharge. But hours later, another call came, this one from Major Reyes herself. Her voice was low, but there was a hint of pride. "Pierce, your intel saved an entire civilian convoy. Your last transmission completed the mission even after you left. You're being cleared of charges, with commendation." I couldn't speak. For the first time, fate had offered mercy. They offered me a desk job after that, safer, predictable. A government office in D.C., reviewing satellite footage. But I said no. Instead, I used my savings and service payout to start something I dreamed about for years, a foundation for children of deployed soldiers. We called it Lila's Light. Scholarships, mental health counseling, community support, everything I wished I'd had when I first became a mother in uniform. When I told my parents, my father looked stunned. My mother, teary-eyed. "You really never stop fighting, do you?" she whispered. I smiled faintly. "Not anymore for war. For peace." Then I laid down my conditions quietly but firmly. If we're going to be a family again, it has to be honest. No more judgment. No more guilt. I won't apologize for the choices that made me who I am. Mom nodded, eyes glistening. Dad stepped forward, voice trembling. "We just didn't want to lose you."
"You almost did," I said.
"But I came back stronger. And I need you to meet that version of me. Not the one who needed your approval." Later, when Lila came home, we sat together on the porch swing, the same one I used to sit on when I was younger, dreaming of the world beyond our small town. She leaned on my shoulder. "Are you going back to work, Mom?" I smiled. "I already am. Just a different kind of mission now." The sunset painted her face gold. For the first time, I felt the quiet peace I'd been chasing my whole life, not from victory, but from finally choosing myself and her at the same time. No more secrets. No more battles I couldn't name. Just purpose. Spring came early that year. The cherry blossoms outside the hospital parking lot had bloomed pink and bright, like the world was offering an apology for all the pain that came before. By the time Lila could walk on her own again, her laughter filled every room. She had a small scar near her temple, but she wore it like a badge, proof that even angels could fall and rise again. One morning, we drove out to Arlington, where Major Evelyn Reyes had been laid to rest the year before. I brought fresh daisies, her favorite. Lila carried a little box. "What's that, sweetheart?" I asked. She smiled. "Something for your friend." At the gravesite, I knelt down, brushed away a bit of dust from the engraved name, and whispered, "You were right, Reyes. You can be both fierce and tender." Then Lila opened the box and pulled out the red thread bracelet, the same one that had never left my wrist through all those years. "Mom," she said softly, "I think she should have it now." I felt the sting of tears before they fell. "You sure?" She nodded. So, with trembling fingers, I tied that faded thread around the base of the stone. It looked fragile against the gray marble, but it glowed under the sunlight, stubborn, bright, alive. I stood there for a long time, the wind lifting my hair, the scent of spring wrapping around us. "War teaches you how to fight," I whispered, half to Reyes, half to myself. "But motherhood teaches you why." When we walked back to the car, Lila slipped her hand into mine. "Do you miss being a soldier?" she asked. I thought about it. The rush of adrenaline, the code words, the camaraderie, the impossible choices. Then I looked at her, so alive, so full of the future. "Not really," I said with a smile. "Turns out I'm still on a mission, just a different kind." That night, after she'd gone to bed, I sat on the porch again, the same creaking swing, the same Virginia sky, but everything inside me felt new. The stars above were sharp, clear, unfiltered. I closed my eyes and let myself breathe. For the first time in years, I wasn't running toward or away from anything, just being. And in that stillness, I heard her laugh echo from inside, that pure, fearless sound that had kept me alive across oceans and wars. I smiled, wiped a tear, and whispered the final truth, the one I'd waited my whole life to understand. Some missions end in explosions. Mine ended in forgiveness.